Welcome back to this week's market review. It is February 22nd. Let's get right to it. Even though last week was a shortened week with Monday being off, Tuesday through Friday, it was pretty buzzing. The biggest news came on Friday, which was kind of a surprise because the Supreme Court has been pushing off its ruling decision on Trump's tariffs, but it actually came out. So what did they rule? They basically smacked down his big tariff push. They ruled that he overstepped with the IEEPA, and stocks kind of popped on that relief. The S&P closed near its highs of the day. However, at the same time, you can see that in this range, it is still large chop. It's really not doing anything. Now, we do have the weekend news coming out that he's already signed a tariff that's going to be a global tariff of 10% starting on Tuesday. I also read something that it was also around 15%. And so this is why I did not chase anything into Friday, because there's always time over the weekend to digest. There's that initial move of yay, potential relief, tariffs allow for growth, all these economic things. However, this administration probably knew or had some sort of plan that this was a potential. And so you could see Trump already taking action. And so relative to trading, I think taking the weekend off from longs at least was the better call in my opinion. That's why I didn't come out on anything. Also, Claude came out with some new news. Basically, that the Claude code security, it's a new AI tool that scans code bases for vulnerabilities and suggests patches for human review. That hit CrowdStrike pretty hard on that news. We'll go over that shortly. So I'm watching for continuation in CrowdStrike, potentially to the downside, moving on to this upcoming week. And big thing, we also have Nvidia's earnings on Wednesday night after close. So let's get to everything in a little bit more detail. I have some trade setups for you guys that's potentially going to head into next week. Might be some value. So looking again, SPX, cash index of the S&P 500, it's not doing anything. We continue to chop in range for months. EMAs are all chopping sideways. Anchor VWAPs are chopping sideways. It's a chop fest. It's hard to trade this. However, if you look at the RSP, the equally weighted S&P 500, this is nice. It's breaking out into all-time highs. We have a all-time high close on Friday. It's only 0.5% away from all-time highs. It's holding this breakout area after a retest. It's grinding higher. It's really been staying within this large range from Thursday, the 12th, February 12th. That sell-off, not really sell-off, but selling day. But overall, it looks pretty healthy. Why? Because this is equally weighted. It takes out the weight of heavy tech, and heavy tech has been just dragging on the market. It's acting as an anchor, not allowing really anything overall to go anywhere. Now, there are pockets in the market to be in, as I've been saying this in like every week after week. But tech is the overall challenge right now. So NDX, you can see again at the bottom of its range. Nice volume if you pay attention to volume on Friday. I don't really pay attention to volume personally, but it's held where it needed to hold within the bottom of this range after the undercut, potential higher low here. So maybe we get at least a 25,330, 25,340 area. And that maybe we tag the opposite end range. We'll see. Equally weighted QQQs, breakdown of this, retesting. It's spending time underneath here, and now it is overcutting and then closing back below the 8 EMA. The short term, the 8 in the blue line is a 21 EMA. They're starting to train track down. The more time this spends underneath this large distribution area, it looks like a distribution area, the more the likelihood and the odds of this starting to trend downward. So that's kind of the overall look there. Again, big picture. I've been saying it for the past few weeks. It's basically everywhere. Tech. Tech is not doing much. So let's look into the big names that make up tech. Firstly, Microsoft. Interesting thing, when everything else rallied on Friday, or a good majority of names rallied on Friday, what did Microsoft do? Nothing. It closed the day down nearly 0.5%. I did draw out this potential bear flag scenario here. Downtrend, pops into the 8 EMA downtrend again. We do have that gap fill. It continues to look weak. I do think this is a potential short this week. So what I am watching is you can see I have an alert here. Lows, break of these lows of 392.32. And I would look for more downside. Basically, if you go on the weekly, look for this week's lows. You can see it's chopping around within this range. If it breaks those lows, I'm targeting these lows here of 384.44. Have an alarm there. And also, if that momentum can carry on down, ultimately, I am looking for this gap fill of 367.77, and then probably finding some sort of support around this area here that I have marked off. So that's kind of longer term. Microsoft, it still looks down. Nvidia, again, Nvidia has earnings this Wednesday, Wednesday PM. It continues to chop in this range. It's not doing anything. Maybe earnings can get it going. I doubt that, Jensen is just going to say, hey, you know what, AI is not working out. He never really talks poorly about AI. So the guidance is probably going to be good, but really you got to look at the guidance. The revenues continue to grow overall. And so we'll see what happens. But until Nvidia has earnings, I'm not touching it. Apple, I am carrying Apple short into the weekend. That might be a mistake depending on how the market responds and how it wants to think about Trump's tariffs and being struck down and then also starting a new one. However, I did say if I think right here, this big red bar, there's a pivot on gap range within this area. So I did say I do think pops into this bar have a potential to be shorted. So I did that. I followed my plan. I had a plan. I executed it. And we'll see if it works out. The only way I can really get hurt is if it gaps up against me on Monday, because my size is pretty decent. My stop loss was pretty close. So maybe I should have closed out, but I didn't. And there's that. There's a risk we take. Either way, it's underneath the short-term EMAs. Everything's just chopping around. My target is the 200 EMA around 250, maybe even 244 here. Looking at that. But we'll see. Amazon has a potential gap fill play here, especially here's the earnings. Price is above this green line, anchored from the earnings. We have a nice volume push on Friday. There's a potential that it works into this gap down from earnings. First level of kind of defense we got to play here. You can see it's consolidating right here. Is this 21 EMA at 217.07. So what I could see happening if we get a pop maybe on Monday, hit that, pull back, chop around a little bit, and then get the gap fill. And then we'll see where it goes from there. We also have this here, and then we have another gap above. But before we get that gap fill, we have the 200 EMA, which is right here, and then the pink line here, and then the 50 EMA, which is right here. So we have to get through all of the EMAs first before we get that gap fill. I think that'll take a little bit more time, but a potential gap fill to 220.38 this week on Amazon is a potential on my docket. Obgo, Broadcom. This is chopping around, not really doing anything. It looks weak. If you zoom in, there's a whole bunch of, actually, let me just stay on the daily. You can see all these topping tails here. Sell, 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 sell. Every time it just kind of slowly chops up. We have a larger volume on Friday, closing after putting in a nice topping tail. It's holding the anchor VWAP from there. It tagged the 200, but overall it just looks weak. I think there are better places to be if you are a long-only trader. This is a potential short, but it's not on top of my list. Meta, I was saying, hey, Meta looks like it's about to bounce on, I either said that on Tuesday or Wednesday. We're getting a nice little bounce out of it. However, it is now hitting the bottom of the 50 and the 200 EMAs and even the 21. So there's a lot of chop in this area. I'm not super interested in Meta at this point in time. Netflix is pretty interesting, actually. I did draw out this bear flag potential, but what happened? On Friday, it popped. And it popped right into the 8 EMA and on decent-ish volume, I suppose. I wouldn't say it's anything significant, but I was actually anticipating further downside. I do still think there's a potential we get the 70-44 gap fill, but what you can see is this thing likes to pop up, close or just above the 8 EMA and then sell off. Pops just above the 8 EMA, sell off. This last time it popped above the 20 or to the 21 and then sold off. This was a short I was looking for, but I missed it. So overall, the trend is obviously down. The 50's down, the 200's down, the 21 is down, the 8 is down. The trend is down. So it's guilty until proven innocent. It's finding support in this demand zone here from October-ish of 24. And so we'll see what actually happens. Tesla, not really interested. I'm interested when this eventually shows some sort of life, but it just continues to chop around. Google hit my $300 target, chopping around in this range here. It's under the 50 now. It has some nice volume on Friday. What you could do is set an anchor VWAP to that high volume day. I also have an anchor VWAP to this low. You can see it on the shorter term time frame here, which was it's respecting it, right? So now on Friday we get a nice pop. It's into the 50. It's coming up to the anchor VWAP from the all-time high here. So X and the 21. So I'm anticipating some sort of supply. But what we could look for is it hits those levels, pulls back, and then sets a higher low somewhere around this anchor VWAP here, and then shops around and then maybe breaks those highs, that supply area, and then continues on up. So that's a potential. CrowdStrike, this is what I'm talking about. It got hit again. I was looking for a short in this area, but I got stopped out earlier in the week. It popped up to the 21 again and then got crushed on that Claude code news that I talked about at the beginning of the video. And so I am looking for a continuation down. What I did was I anchored a volume weighted average price to this large bar when the news came out. It is now underneath the anchor VWAP from this prior low. So the average participant from this prior low here is now underwater. So the longs have the pressure on. And if we get continued selling pressure, especially in the software space, I think we at least tag this low. So that's another, how far down here? Another 3.5% down. Potentially, I'm still targeting this support here, came back, retested it. I'm still targeting this 355 area, 360 to 355. I think that's a potential still. And, I have these levels just marked in case, but we'll get there if we need to get there, plan-wise, that is. So CrowdStrike, I am looking for further continuation down. Now, ServiceNow, this looks weak as well. Hitting the anchor VWAP from the earnings gap down, getting rejected, closing at its lows. It looks like it wants to go retest this 98 level. It is by this prior resistance level, so we'll see if that turns into support. It held back here. Nice push, flag to the 8 EMA, or pull back to the 8 EMA, and there it goes. But we'll see what happens if price comes back and retests that. Palantir, it's kind of hard right now. It's very whippy, very choppy. Everything is obviously still down. The EMAs and everything. Like I said last week, it's at an area of interest. It could just base around this little cup and handle breakout area. And so maybe you could start building a position around here, but I do still think it needs some time to digest. I do still think pops will be volatile, so you can have some pretty strong day moves up, but I would not trust them. You have the 21, the 200, and the 50 all above head. The trend is down. You got a ton of potential supply overhead here. I just wouldn't trust it. Excuse me. Hood, same thing. I have this range from Thursday the 12th blocked out, has basically been chopping within that bar. So watch to see which way it breaks. I think if Bitcoin breaks lower, Hood breaks lower, but similar to Palantir, it's at a level of interest after this base area breakout here. It's close to there. So maybe it pulls back a little further to this $66 and kind of chops there. But I do have alerts on the breakout of either direction here. Hood is, I don't know what to say about it. It's sloppy. It's chopping around. Berkshire, this is interesting. Undercut of these lows closed near the high of the day. So this looks like it could tag the 507 area. I'm just not super interested. financials, they're just kind of chopping around, right? They're the second largest weight other than XLK sector-wise. And so I was saying, Visa last week, this looks like a potential short. Tagged it, came back down, but now it's retesting it at the 8 again. The more time it spends underneath here, I think the less likely it is to accept above this. It looks like it could have another leg down. Just nothing has happened with it yet. I basically said the same thing with Mastercard. Bank of America, not super interesting. XLV area, LLY, Eli Lilly chopping around, not doing anything. J&J, Johnson & Johnson looks good, holding the 8 EMA. You get a little bit of selling on increased volume on Friday. Nothing to be concerned of. Maybe we actually start to get a little bit of a price correction and tag of the 21. Just be mindful. Last time it sold off pretty hard to the 21 and then nothing but run up afterwards. So I'm not calling a top or a short here. I'm just saying maybe it's time for a little bit of rest to digest this from the breakout 15% move. So it's not a huge momentum mover, but either way, Abby, nothing to be interesting here. I think XLI is the most interesting area to be in this week. Last week I said, hey, watch the breakout in GE. We got that breakout in GE. It is now 1, 2, 3, 4 days up. I would not chase this personally right now. What I would do is I would go on a shorter time frame, look for higher highs and higher lows. I want personally at least a pullback to retest this breakout area. So I'd be interested maybe in this 334 area to set something, or maybe it time corrects and lets the 8 EMA chop up. However, now that this broke out of this base, I would keep this on watch for a trend to begin. Caterpillar, this looks pretty solid, flagging time/price correcting to the 8 EMA. Looking down on the 30-minute chart, zooming in here, you can see it broke the downtrend line. It failed initially, but it found supply at this prior supply area. Not that big of a deal. It did set a higher low versus here. So what we are looking for now is, now that it had a push, chopped around a little bit, hit prior supply, pulled back, set a higher low versus this. Now we look for a higher high to be set and trend continuation to continue on up. I do like CAT for this week. It looks pretty good. RTX also looks pretty good. I think CAT and RTX are better players other than versus GE, because GE already broke out. RTX is getting very tight, especially it has a nice multi-week base here. 3.5, 4 weeks or so, somewhere around there, is getting very tight around the breakout area, near all-time highs, has an inside day of Thursday. On Friday, nice volume, so decent bottoming tail-ish, kind of close to an indecision doji, but we will see. The 8 EMA is starting to poke up, the 21's poking up, all the long-term EMAs are up. So I would keep a watch on RTX breakout. I do have an alert set at 206.73 for the breakout on RTX. It looks pretty solid. XLP got hit this week. Walmart got hit on earnings. Poor guidance, nothing to say here. It's at the 50. Maybe it bases around here. Needs a little rest. Costco finding supply at prior supply areas, setting higher highs and higher lows so far. It's at the 21. Could be an area to risk against. I'm not super interested. Procter & Gamble hitting prior supply area. I think it needs to clear that to hold first. Coca-Cola, it looks decent. PM continues to move on higher, hitting prior supply areas here. It did set an all-time high this week, so it's pretty strong. This is the first pullback since the all-time high. Hitting the 21 could be of interest. Not me really. XLE looks like it might need a little bit of rest overall. So we have Exxon here. Maybe a pullback to the 21 is in order. Maybe a little bit of basing is in order. We could draw a downtrend line here to see if it fills out, creates like a triangle, some sort of flag or pennant or something like that, to see how it fills. It might need some time, might need some rest. CVX also just kind of chopping around. Everything looks good. COP, I called a trend reversal a few weeks ago. It's finding supply where my mark level is. I think once it closes above 150, if it does 115 and holds, I don't see why it wouldn't trend all the way up to 133. It looks pretty decent. Trend is your friend until it bends in the end. Let's move on to XLU. NE, I marked out this cup and handle. It's kind of a slow mover, but that's fine. It's continuing to grind up the 8 EMA. Looks good. SO looks okay. Nothing spectacular. Duke, nothing spectacular. CEG, it undercut. This could be a quote unquote bull trap. So a little oopsies. Broke this low. Watch to see how much supply, how much candy comes out of the pinata. Came back in. It didn't get rejected yet. It got rejected at the 50 EMA. Here's your quote unquote death cross. It might not work, which is whatever. I don't pay attention to that. But you're starting to get an 8 and 21 pinch. We do have earnings this week on Tuesday. So be mindful of that. That could, maybe that gets this thing up, get some legs underneath it. Maybe it stays within range, but it looks better than what it did. That's for sure. It's shaping up, but I'm not interested. Well, it's holding where it needs to hold at the highs here. We'll see if it continues on. It had a nice earnings and it looks pretty decent. PLD also looks pretty good. I do have a alert set at this 141.95. You can see also looks like a trend reversal, similar to COP. Large consolidation doing nothing since basically mid to early 2022. And now it is breaking out and has a nice little consolidation over that range, a little ascending triangle. Watch the 141.95 breakout. Looks pretty decent. AMAT, I would wait until it gets above and holds that 200 EMA. Looks okay overall. Looks like a potential reversal is in play. EQIX, huge gap from earnings. Trying to fill into the earnings gap. It tagged the 8 EMA and it pushed off the 8 EMA. If you're a volume person, there's a volume. There's a nice little push on volume there. It found supply, it gapped into prior supply. So we should not be surprised that we found supply. But what it does after this, maybe it continues to base and break out within the next few weeks. LIN hitting all-time highs. Looking at the weekly, we got a breakout and on LIN. I would look for continuation. This thing's not a huge mover. However, I'm going to take that back. Don't look for continuation into this week. Obviously, I could be wrong, but the odds, it's moved 12% in the last 2.5 weeks or so, in the last 2 weeks, and it's done nothing but run up into prior support. I would look for a pullback to set a higher low somewhere, maybe the 21, and then we continue on up. That's what I would look for LIN. NEM, just chopping around. FCX looks okay, just chopping around, basing. Bitcoin continues to respect this short-term downtrend line. It continues to close underneath the 8 EMA. The 21 is down, the 50 is down. Bitcoin just does not look good. I do have an anchor VWAP from this low here. If you want to zoom in on the 30, I will do that for you real quick. So put an anchor VWAP to this low. That'll tell you where participants, the average participant, is relative to that low. So even right now, as I speak, the average participant is underwater since that low. You can see it just really chopping around, but just something to give you some analysis on, and another extra layer on your thesis. My thesis is Bitcoin is still heading down. Potentially to this 55 to 50 area. And then if we get there, we will reconvene and see what happens. All right, metals, gold, honestly, actually looks like it's about to pop again. However, silver, AEM looks pretty good. ABX looks okay. Huge bottoming tail, undercut these prior to lows and close within. That might start to roll. Silver, I wouldn't touch silver. This thing is still 30% off its all-time highs. Went parabolic, got absolutely crushed. I'm not touching SLV anymore. I never did. WPM looks like it's curling on up. These metal names, they are all curling up. They're super volatile. HL, Hecla Mining looks the most decent, maybe out of the potential. I would watch this balance zone. I would watch for the break of that. And then maybe it can get going again. We can set an anchor VWAP from this high here, and it's coming into supply here, potential supply that is, but watch for the breakout and then a retest of this box here. I'll show you real quick. Basically of this balance zone, this box, this consolidation, tomato, whatever you want to call it, breakout, retest, and then go. AG, same thing. It's already hitting all-time high or hitting the prior highs. I'd wait for a pullback. Others of interest, MSTR. If Bitcoin goes down, this goes down. Broke the downtrend line, tagged the 21. Nice topping tail on volume. We'll see. I still think it goes down. This could be a short potential. Looking down at the shorter term time frame, you can see this level right here. Again, it ran it and then came back in. So we can mark this off as a level of interest to potentially risk against. And then, it's got to clear that. And then next would be 139, 140. And then we'll see, maybe even get up to maybe 150 after that. But it's got to go level by level first. Here, look how this works. Mark here, you just draw a straight line. So good support becomes resistance, right? So I'm not super interested in MSTR, especially on the long side. Short side looks a little bit better. TSM looks absolutely great. Consolidation, breakout, actually retesting, price correction to the 8 EMA on Friday on volume. We get a nice push. Zooming in, you can see we have a nice little mini few day base here. This prior supply area, I'm actually going to set an alert right there for, let's just call it 372.07, somewhere around there to break out. We probably head to 379 after that and probably get some continuation. So you might want to potentially set a plan for that. Oracle, I think Oracle's heading down at least to this prior low, this 135. Obviously, it popped pretty good, but it popped right into the declining 21 EMA. Everything, you have a quote unquote death cross here. 50 EMA is going down. And let's see where it found support prior here. If it breaks this low, I would look for this 121 to 118 area for potential support. But if we have to get there first, and then we can draw up a plan of potentials. But either way, I think it's at least retest here. Maybe it bounces a little bit and then continues on lower. Maybe it starts to actually consolidate and find a bid and chop around somewhere. But right now, that is not that time, because you can obviously see that it is still downtrending. Deer, oh dear, looks pretty darn good. I wouldn't chase this now. Inside day, since earnings on Friday looked pretty good, flagged to the 8 EMA, popped on earnings. I would wait for like 2-3 days for some chop, and then it breaks into some sort of direction. But overall, even looking out at the weekly, it's in all-time highs. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks up now. I feel like it needs some sort of rest, but it's grinding, it's rocking, it's rolling. And I would keep it on watch. VRT, I did say it looked good last week. I still think it looks good, just didn't do anything last week. Continues to chop around, kind of tried to fill in the gap here. Letting the time correcting, remember, time correcting markets are stronger than price correcting markets. It is time correcting. It is chopping sideways. It is price is being accepted up here, and letting the short-term EMA catch up. So what I would do if I were you, I'm actually going to do it right now. I'm going to set an alert on the 8 EMA. And if it tags it, it's going to alert me. That's going to be around there somewhere. It'll alert me, and then I'm going to look for a potential entry in VRT. All right, let's look at earnings next week. The biggest thing right here, Nvidia, Wednesday after close. Hims and hers, this was, a popular stock on FinX. It's gotten crushed. I don't think it looks good. KTOS actually is an important defense stock coming up. Let's see, Monday, Fresh Pet, that was like on popular FinX. It's on a video that I made. Go check that one out. It'll be at the link at the end of this video. Zeta is at an area of prior support. It's also in my prior video. MELI, Mercado Libre, that's a decent one to pay attention to. Let's see, IonQ for you momentum traders. That was a popular one that was going around. I don't think it looks very good. At least the last time I looked at it, it was just yesterday, or maybe it was Friday. SoundHound, that I haven't looked at that, but I know that was a popular one for you guys. Another popular momentum name is Rocket Lab. That is this week. When was it? I saw it on here at some point in time. Rocket Lab somewhere on here. But either way, Rocket Lab is this week as well. CoreWeave, there's another popular one. Oh, there it is. Rocket Lab, CoreWeave, Thursday after close. But really bigger picture market, it's right here, Nvidia. Also, Home Depot before open on Tuesday. That's an important one as well. Let's look at the calendar. We don't really have anything super important coming up this week. Just on Friday, we have the PPI. Other things, if you want to have some anxiety about news that probably doesn't matter, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you got a lot of Fed speakers and blah, blah, blah. So, but really overall, nothing super important coming up other than on Friday. So, all right, there's your prep for the week. Stay focused, have a plan, and execute. Right, the more time you plan ahead, the less random buttons you're going to press. Like, subscribe, go watch my other FinX video. They're popular names of the week, and I will catch you next week. Trade safe. Good luck.